CSGO is one of my favorite games ever, so it's not hard to imagine how unbelievably excited I've been for Valorant, or Project A, since its reveal. The more semi-realistic cartoonish art style Riot went for is perfect for a tactical shooter in a magnitude of ways. It's a lot easier to distinguish enemies from objects, which is helped by them having a tint of red throughout their body. This especially makes sense here when considering that this game has agents with different designs. The last thing you'd want is players blending in with the environment. It also allows for more surreal stuff that benefit games in this genre greatly, such as circular smokes removing one-ways. You also don't have to worry about the game looking dated a few years down the line. Art styles like these don't exactly age and allow a good looking game to run fast on modern rigs while also being playable on builds dating back a decade. This is something new releases obviously struggle with, but also think that's going to get games such as Valorant to a much wider audience, while not exactly sacrificing quality. Speaking of optimization and let's try and customizability, a lot of focus has been put into the game running well on a variety of different systems, alongside everyone being on an even playing field. The game is more CPU rather than GPU heavy. This greatly improves frame rates, especially on older PCs or ones that don't have a graphics card at all, but can also be useful for content creators using GPU encoding, given that you own a 16 or 20 series GeForce graphics card. Changing your crosshair and choosing between different stats to display are both luckily apparent and are quite easy to manage, yet extensive. The game is quite restricted with its resolution, however, with your field of view being locked at a solid 103 degrees and stretch resolution not being supported and instead slapping black bars onto your screen. This also applies to ultra-wide monitors or anything that surpasses 16:9 aspect ratio, but both of these limitations make sense given the competitive environment. Time to kill, like you'd expect, is fast. Most weapons can kill with a single headshot, and on the subject of weapons, these things are fucking hot. Their animations are sub-earth. There's a slight kick when equipping guns, a tiny spin when knifing. They look fantastic and sound even better. I love shit like this. Even though their first shots are precise, oddly they don't follow a strict recoil pattern, even though it may seem like it at first glance. There's a hint of bloom thrown into the mix, so for better or for worse, it's impossible to quote-unquote master a weapon. And I'm not sure if this makes sense considering the genre. Most weapons have an alternate fire mode as well. Typically it's a scope that slightly increases your accuracy when spraying at the cost of fire rate, or allows burst fire instead of auto. But there are a few exceptions, such as the classic pistol which could fire 3 bullets at once, and Bucky, which has an extended primary shot for longer distances. All the weapons feel balanced and like they're serving a purpose. No gun feels like it doesn't have a role in game, so it makes sense why Riot isn't planning on adding new weapons. Agents are definitely the biggest change Valorant has brought to the table. While their hitboxes and speed are identical to each other, every agent comes with their own set of abilities, which range from smokes, flashes, nades, and mollies to cameras, walls, teleports, bazookas, revives, and wall hacks. This honestly doesn't make a lot of sense, but I guess is necessary to distinguish yourself from the rest. While not everyone is as helpful to the team as the next, like Jett and Omen whose abilities are more self-centered, having agents around does increase the need for teamwork though. You may want to stack abilities such as smokes and flashes, and due to the requirement of each team member having to choose an agent that can't be changed midway through a game or picked twice, there has to be some thought put into which agent's abilities are best suited for said person's playstyle. Riot has stated multiple times that they want to deliver a fair experience with no pay-to-win elements. Yet, half the agents are behind a paywall or a grinding session with considerable length. Granted, when looking at the time usually spent on a game like this, those sessions are quite minuscule, but by literal definition you're able to pay for progression to potentially have a leg up on your opponents. While the core gameplay loop is pretty similar to CS's, Valorant does a few things to change up the pace and introduce new strats with its economy system. Games can last for up to 25 rounds, with each round lasting for 1 minute and 40 seconds, with a 30-second buy phase at the start of each of them. What's different about the buy phase compared to the freeze time in CS is that you can move around and position yourself to your desired location throughout that period. And yes, this does mean you can't buy after the round has started. Getting tagged here is a much bigger worry than it is in CS. You'll slow down tremendously. If you defuse the spike halfway through, you can stop and return to it with your progress being saved. The economy system, while similar to Counter-Strike's, deviates itself from it by a little. Winners get 3,000 credits per round win, while losers get 1,900. However, the number can ramp up to 2,900 if you go on a losing streak, and the first round of each half starts with 800 credits. The biggest change is to the amount you earn by getting an elimination. Doesn't matter what weapon you're using, it's always gonna be 200. Also, both of the armor options protect your entire body and more or less work as HP boosts, with the cheaper option charging you 400 creds and adding an extra 25 HP, and the more expensive version taking 1,000 creds and adding an extra 50 HP. There's also a ton of quality of life improvements. Wallbangable areas are demonstrated by decals, and it's always clear if a bullet can penetrate through a surface or not. All useful weapon stats are displayed in the buy menu. Speaking of the buy menu, you can ask and give drops directly through it, even let the team know when you have leftover credits or whether you should buy or save this round. The combat log shows you all the info you can need about the damage you dealt and received, without having to use the console to access said details. Currently there's 3 maps available, with the promise of 4 at launch. Every map however is designed to have a gimmick of some sort. From the 3 that we have available at the moment, one has one-way teleporters, other 3 bomb sites, and the third has Ziplines? They also feel a bit cramped, but that may be due to you being able to move quite close to action-packed areas before rounds even start. My favorite of the bunch has to be Haven at the moment. It's the least gimmicky and, in my opinion, the best designed one. I really hope that in the future we'll be able to pick out a map to queue for, rather than jumping into a pool cycling between the three like we do now. None of these maps have a skybox, so throwing certain abilities from one side to another is possible. It's also very nice to see a proper shooting range built into the game, with different speeds and modes to choose from, and I like how you can quickly change your sensitivity on the fly. I tend to spend a lot of time playing on areas like these, so it's definitely a very welcome addition. When looking at the technical side, Riot has made a lot of promises in terms of server tick rate, netcode, and anti-cheat. Its tick rate, aka how many times the server updates per second, has been set to a comfortable 128 right off the bat. That paired with server smoothing, which should theoretically remove warping on laggy friends and foes alongside the minimization of peekers advantage, and what you have left is some of the most responsive gameplay I've experienced. There hasn't been a moment where I felt a shot I missed should have connected or a death granted shouldn't have taken place. Not once have I felt the need to play in the game, but rather my lack of skill is being rubbed into my face by the game. But the anti-cheat is where things start to get a bit iffy. On paper, Vanguard and their Fog of War system sound great. One is an AI-driven aimbot detector that will stop matches as soon as a cheater is found. Other a countermeasure wall hacking, a system where enemies don't quote-unquote exist until you can actually see them. Now the funny thing is, just 2 days into the closed beta, cheaters were already present, and matters are only made worse when you realize Vanguard is running on your system since boot. So not only are you making your system vulnerable for security breaches, but you're allowing Tencent to monitor you for no actual benefits in-game.
Flawless! There you are, you little shit.
There you are, you little shit. Now, I don't have a problem with that, not one bit, but what I do have a problem with is that when I type shit in chat, it gets censored. Double standards like these are something that really grind my gears, cause you have a game about fucking killing people, and you have a fucking profanity filter like swearing is somehow worse, even though you have a character in the game saying shit. Visual audio in a game like this makes no sense to me. Footsteps are already pretty loud, there's no need to pinpoint someone's location and lower the skill ceiling. Also, just because Apex showed everyone that pinging can be done well, doesn't mean you need to cram the thing into shooters such as this. A big part about games like this is communication with your teammates, but allowing you to just ping a spot on the map and, once again, show your foe's exact location instead of describing it lowers the skill ceiling or at least map awareness. It's also confirmed that there won't be any community support of any kind. Even though there's skins in game, those are going to be made exclusive by Riot, alongside maps or anything really. Not allowing community servers makes some sense if all that Valorant is destined to be is a tactical shooter and only that. And hence there's a lack of a marketplace like Steam's community market or a workshop for players to submit their creations, their absence can be explained, but it never hurts long term to get the community involved. But interestingly, Valorant feels a bit linear, which I know sounds as weird as it is for me to say. But with there being limitations such as no boosting players, that can be only done through abilities, or even deaths having preset animations instead of ragdolls, much more about it feels predetermined, with games tending to feel more or less the same, much more than they do in CSGO. Sure, these two changes are beneficial for a more competitive experience, but given you have agents with abilities that show your location with pinpoint accuracy and a literal demo man, on top of pretty much every agent having at least one ability that deviates themselves for working well in a competitive environment, you have a game where in one hand it's built to be as fair and competitive as possible, and the other, it's just a hero shooter. That being said, Valorant is one of the most polished shooters to release in a long time, and it's not hard to tell they've seriously improved on many of the complaints players have had for a long while, with just a pile of questionable, yet fixable choices thrown into the mix. I have no doubts that it'll hit big upon release across the globe, but it's crystal clear that it's not the next Counter-Strike, rather something more, yet something less at the same time.